Many of you know Western National Parks Association is a cooperating association with the National Park Service, and we run bookstores in 66 national park sites. Our company is private, nonprofit, and charitable, and because of your purchases in our stores and your memberships, it allows us to offer the National Park Service over $2 million every year to help with their educational, interpretive, and research goals. And of course, my favorite part is I get a job out of this deal, so thank you for that too. Our speaker today is here to tell us about a piece of Southwest history. As you can see, there's gold in these stones. So he's here to tell us about the Iron Door Mine and a piece of property that he owns that has ruins of something on it. He's going to tell us all about that. His name is Flint Carter. Please welcome him.
Below the biosphere, there's a little place. It was called the Linda Vista Guest Ranch, and it was the first guest ranch in the state. George Stone Wilson got it in 1911. Woodrow went in the White House in 1912 and made Arizona a state. Whether they're related or not, I'm not really sure, but it's kind of a coincidence. We've got miles of irrigation canals, and before Saddlebrook actually was built, I had a contract with the landowner, Lloyd Golder, to look for this mine with the iron door. It's been going on about 40 years now, and as far as we can tell, there was actually 5 mines with the iron door. And as far as we can interpret it, they were some of the earliest mining in the Southwest, but they were done by the French instead of the Spanish. The oldest stuff we've found has been French and not Spanish. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to get some interested people like you. We've tried to compile a bunch of records. This is all of the stories that has been written on the mine with the iron door that we've compiled so far. And there's a lot of other people that's got a lot more information. If we could put this all together in one place, we're trying to preserve it for the future generations. The book starts out and got its main popularity from a gentleman here in town called Harold Bell Wright, who wrote The Mine with the Iron Door. Now, most people don't know Mr. Wright was one of the biggest people in Tucson for the charities. At TMC, he built a tuberculosis victim tent city, and now TMC is built on top of it. He did plays especially for Tucson. He started the indigent health care program. He brought in movie stars, Emma Carras from the Ziegfeld Follies, and Tom Hart wrote a play especially for Tucson called The Salt of the Earth. And he's written quite a few novels. He was actually a preacher in Branson, Missouri, and they told him he had to lock the doors on the church, and he left. He said, where I come from, God's doors are never locked. But this man here is really the one that brought the mine with the iron door to light. And later at our ranch out there in 1924, they filmed the first movie. It was one of the first westerns filmed around here, called The Mine with the Iron Door. This, the product we have here, the Cody Stone, is extremely rare because even though what you're seeing is not pure gold and pure silver, you can still see that in the old days, you'd have been doing that Walter Houston dance from the Treasure of Sierra Madre. But there is supposedly a sister mission in Caborca, and that's where, when this first story, Mrs. Kitt wrote in here about them, and it goes on to tell the book, The Mine with the Iron Door. When you read it, the old prospectors say, we can't figure out why them Spanish put a door on that mine up above the steam pump ranch. So everybody has put it into Caradega Canyon up in there. The Canyon of Gold, and the real Canyon of Gold, is from the biosphere to Oracle and then south all the way to the top of the mountain. There's 2 big ridges. Oracle Ridge runs to the northeast. San Diego Ridge runs to the northwest, and up in that is the real Canyon of Gold. And that's where in here she mentions this reef of rock. And there isn't one up in here in Caradega Canyon. Now, I don't know whether Wright went into the canyon and stayed in the middle. The Wilsons let him live there in 1917. He wrote an article, Why I Did Not Die. Cody had just died that year. And I think that's where he got into this story about the mine. Supposedly the Kiwanis Club was going to put up a 30-foot marker at the entrance. Most of the people have it confused with as being up in this Caradega Canyon. Now, the interesting part is the Caradega Canyon on the mineral maps is known for gold. The Canyon of Gold is known for silver. So we're getting off on a lot of different, it's been 40 years of this, and I used this line that I'd heard it before, and it was perfect, and it said, a gold mine is a hole in the ground with a liar standing next to it. I didn't know that it was Mark Twain who actually had that line out, but there's another line, and it says, a legend is a true story, how's it go? A legend is a true story too dangerous to be told, so it's told as fiction. And I'm probably the first idiot in 400 years who's been running around telling everybody about this stuff. I imagine that pretty much in the past people got a lot of really mean, nasty things done to them, and that's probably most of the reason that we haven't been able to find out about the main part of the history, because of the gold. People, you don't go around talking about it, you could lose your life from it, and back in the old days it could have been a really rough thing. And the mine that we have, they said there was 2 rich mines. The Lost City is at one location, and then we have a mining claim on the other mine. We opened that one site, took 4 years digging by hand, and well, I was glad when we broke through into that tunnel, because otherwise they was going to put me in one of them jackets, you know, that goes on backwards for digging holes in the ground. But there was a good gold vein in there. There was a wooden pin in it, but they'd actually cut through the vein, so they only went in 30 foot. As I mentioned, in New Mexico, I don't know whether any of you heard of the Victoria Peak project over there in the White Sands area. There was my partner's granddad stole a horse when he was in Fort Sill and he was young, and he ended up in jail with none other than Geronimo. Now, Geronimo had been with Buffalo Bill Cody, and he told Cody, I know where there's $5 million in gold in a cave, and if you'll let me and my people go back to our land, I'll give you the gold. Well, it turns out that he drew Doc a map on the inside of his shirt. Doc goes to New Mexico, climbs down in this 1,400-foot vent, finds there's a big lava tube, and there's streams in there, and he come out and told his wife, he goes over, he said, there's bars of iron down there. He said, pig iron stacked like cords of wood. And she said, well, Doc, bring up one of them when you come up. And he brings up a little one, and he said, I ain't carrying that thing up that vent anymore, and he throws it down to her. She goes to picks it up and turns it over, and it's gold. And she goes, Doc, this is gold. He goes, well, that's gold. He said, we'll make Rockefeller look like he's a pauper. Well, that's when the fun began. Before it was over, Doc got shot in the head, unarmed. The guy that shot him got off on self-defense, used Doc's attorney. The military came in and made a bombing range out of it to keep everybody out. And it's been just a nightmare. I don't know whether you've seen it on Unsolved Mysteries. It's been on in about 7 different shows. They've had it on Unsolved Mysteries, the Victoria Peak Treasure. But now there was one other man other than Doc Noss that had seen the treasure, and his name was Benny Samaniego. The mission, and this ridge up here is Samaniego Ridge, and our mission belonged to the Samaniegos. Harry Drachman got that mission out there where I am for $6.59. The University Farms on Campbell, he got for $12.33 in back taxes. However, this is tied to a $12 billion treasure that's still in the court systems today. The latest thing is the Jewish people have said that because there was like 14 of Patton's men that was at the Holloman Air Base, have said that this gold was not a treasure that was an ancient treasure, that it was the war booty from the Second World War, and that they were using Doc's supposed discovery to be able to bring all this gold back into the country and get it in the market. And I mean, I love a story, and you know, as much as anybody, but this thing has got wider, and everybody goes, man, you're so full of it, it's coming out your ears, you know? Now, the Samaniegos had a freight line. And over in New Mexico, there was one Hembrillo Basin where the only water was. And all the trains used to go through there. Well, it started out with Nana, went to Victorio, and then to Geronimo. Every time somebody come through, they'd shoot them, put all this stuff down in this lava tubes. There was 14,990-pound gold bars. Doc sold Carlotta's crown. You know, I've got another film, I've held the sword from Habsburg that was down in there. There was 27 people tied to poles down there when Doc got there, and there were side rooms off of this lava tube that he said was full of skeletons, and all of the Achilles tendons had been cut on the back. And that's still, they let them back in, and then they let them dig. They had to dig, I think it was 1,400 foot to get to where the treasure was. They let them dig 1,300 and some foot, and then shut them down and said, no, we've had an archaeologist here, you owe us $100,000, you have to get out, and made them leave again. And like I said, gold doesn't breed cooperation, and half of this stuff, not even half of it, I imagine that probably 3% of it isn't even really real. But there is some real stuff to it, and there isn't anybody that has anything of this like that from the mountain. But like I said, I'm willing to donate it all if somebody will just make it so it's preserved. Thank you, I appreciate it.